Happy Easter, David.
Happy Easter, Kesh. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 4 o'clock on Sunday. This is One Take Dave. David Lowe is my name. Today I'm going to take you through a bit of differences between two blocks of grapes. Differences is what makes this sort of wine industry fun and fabulous to be with. So at present before we start, Kesh, knock knock.
Who's there?
Ether.
Ether who?
Ether Bunny. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Another
Who?
Another Ether Bunny.
Can you just be serious for a second?
If I could do my hello boys and girls, it's my creepy voice. Differences. We're about differences today. We're in block 5, about 30 to 50 metres to the east is block 8, which we're also going to do a compare and contrast tasting with. And of course we have the glass tree behind me, but block 5 is planted along with block 8 in 1997. And why they are different is principally because of the geology. When we planted the vineyard, we gave them all numbers, and we knew they were different because of the geology, the soil and the stone level. But we put block numbers down not knowing exactly where they would fit. But once I had the soil analysis back and I dug a few pits, I could tell where I thought the best wines would be, where the Zinfandel would go, where the Merlot would go, and where the Shiraz would go. And block 5 and block 8 are differentiated because block 5 is slightly higher. It's more west, as I just explained, or block 8 is to the east, and there's about a 3 to 4 metre fall. Not much, but it turns out that makes a huge difference, certainly in our little vineyard as it is. So block 5 geology is stones and shale. This is the quartz and shale that part of the gold mining which started the wine industry in Mudgee. Remember that gold was the reason the wine industry started. People needed something to drink. So the geology of the soil, we planted these, and we planted these with a bucket of water and a spade in 1997, planted them very deep, and as a result the vines without irrigation have gone looking for moisture. Grapevines have some need to structurally go deep to hold themselves. They don't go as deep as other plants because they have tendrils, so they often attach themselves to a wire or other plants around them, but effectively the root systems on block 5 go, we think, about 5 metres deep. That's not extraordinary in the world of wine. If you go to the Champagne region of France, they'll show you in the tunnels the roots coming through 15 to 20 metres down. But what that means is the vines go looking for moisture, and they do some struggle, and of course as a result osmotically they've got to suck the moisture a long way up for transpiration and for ripening the fruit. On the other hand, block 8, just to my left and to the east, is a little bit lower down, and a lot of the topsoil from here is washed down. That means there's more clay. The vines don't need to go as deep looking for moisture because the clay has held the moisture. They're 1.5 to 2 metres deep. That difference, even though they're the same grapevine, planted at the same time, they're grown the same way, the same planting density, the same clone, everything is the same, the wines are quite different, and that's what I wanted to try and explain to you today by using some social lubricant. Also, if there's time, I'll talk about what we're doing in the soil to make our soils better, to try and improve it, because we've got so much time on our hands. By the way, our business, as we've carried on, we're doing pretty well. We're getting a lot of support from everybody buying online. Thank you for that, those who are listening. And we've retained all of our staff, and we're doing lots of things around the place that we needed to do. We would never have done if we didn't have the opportunity, now that we have no fruit because of the smoke taint, and because we can't operate the cellar door as a conventional tasting cellar door. You can still buy wine online and you can still come and visit us, but the requirements at the moment is there's no actual tasting. It changes all the time, and watching One Take Dave will keep you up to date as anything, as much as I know, and we hear all these updates every 2 or 3 days. So I'll go to the vine tree and glass tree and take out an XL5 glass. What do you know, there's 2 nice clean glasses here. It's got a bit of lipstick, I don't know how that happened. And we're going to compare the difference between block 8 down the hill. In fact, I'll do it that way, yes. That's down the hill, which is block 8, and this is block 5 where we are now. I've always been, or when you come to the cellar door and I talk about the difference, or if Kesh talks about the difference, I often say it's a pitching wedge away from the vineyard. It's that close. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you how far away it is.
Wow, where'd you get that golf club from,
It's
David?
from the golf club tree. It's a golf club vine. Now this is one of the reasons why I'm not a professional golfer, but I'm trying to look like the part. So block 8 is down there about 50 metres. This is a 9 iron, I'm reasonably told.
Ah!
It's gone into the compost dam. Never mind, I'll go and get that one later.
Stick to winemaking, David.
I'll put this back in the golf tree. And we're going to take the cork out of block 5. The difference between the two is certainly a lot to do with the aging of it. And for our best wine, which is here, block 5, we use a cork. We use a Sardinian cork. These are guaranteed no cork taint. They're quite long, and they... Shall I talk about cork now? Is it time?
Sure. You've got a bit of time.
All right. Well, while we're doing this, while I'm pouring this, cork and screw cap is something I wanted to talk about another time, but maybe we'll dwell on it now. And if there's any questions, you can ask me either today or send the questions through for another time later on. And I was told by a wise wine sage, boy, it's a mouthful, that with cork, if we and the audience that's watching this, is 140 at the moment watching this, if we all sat down to share a dozen bottles of the same wine. So if we took 6 bottles of block 5 and we took with screw cap, and we had 6 bottles of block 5 with cork, and we all drank them in one hit, in one sitting. It would be a lot of pleasure, but we'll drink them all 12 bottles. 6 with the cork and 6 with the screw cap, the same wine. It's likely, almost guaranteed, that the best and the worst wine would come from the cork bottles, whereas the screw caps are exactly the same. That goes a long way to answering why people want to stick with screw cap, because there's no consistency. My old boss Len Evans said in the years before there was screw cap, there's no such thing as great wine, just a great bottle. That's more to do with the fact there was bottle variation. So the cork can do some great things to wine, and it can do some terrible things to wine. The terrible things to wine is this product called TCA, or trichloroanisole, that comes from the bark in the cork tree, which are principally in Portugal and a bit in Greece and certainly in Spain and in Italy. And that fungus goes through the bark into the cork, which comes from the bark, which we have cork trees here, and that when it touches the wine, the solvent effect of alcohol pulls out this trichloroanisole and gives you this musty cough medicine compound or mushroomy smell, which makes the wine poor. So it's not the wine may be poor, it's actually the cork. And it's quite random. So one tree might have it, and it might contact some other corks, and then they may have a larger or to a lesser extent this cork taint. And it's reasoned some years ago that it's 3 to 5% of wines in Australia where we use cork had some degree or level of cork taint. Now that's got better now because we've alerted the world to it. Australia led the research on the problem, and they've managed to locate a lot of the trees that cause the fungal attack. So the trees we get come from trees that have been checked that they don't have the fungal attack. So that's the bad thing. The good thing about cork is it has some air in it, and that's why it floats. That air, in fact, is like a blotting paper, and if you've got an old wine with wine stain going up, it's a bit like the wine is slowly soaking up the cork. It doesn't mean air goes through. It doesn't mean that at all. It means wine is osmotically soaking up there, but as it goes up the cork, it's pulling in some air. That air is a slow aging process. The denser the cork, the less air, and the slower the aging process. So we use very dense corks, quite long corks, and we get a very good result. Because we don't filter or we don't fine these wines, they have a bit of particulate matter, a bit of stuff inside the wine that settles. That needs a bit of oxygen so it ages, so it goes from one level to a better level. The screw cap, on the other hand, is a seal that is hermetically sealed. If it let air in, of course, it would leak. So in this case, what we're doing is we're sealing the wine off, and any aging's got to come from that level we call the ullage level between the fill height and the screw cap. So it makes every wine taste the same. So that's a good part of it. If you've got a bad cork, it's a disgusting thing. If you've got a great cork, I think it does some great things to it. So as a result of the geology, the grapevines here versus block 8 are much deeper rooted. The berries are therefore smaller. The skins are very tough. The liquid inside is less of a volume ratio than those down the bottom on block 8, where their berries are more inflated, they're more diluted with the skin itself versus liquid. And as such, more down the hill, where they're block 8, they're fruitier, perhaps less dark, and they develop slightly earlier than the block 5. So the block 5 is more dark, a bit like when you see these olives called Picheline olives. They're very dense, very dark, very concentrated. So this wine needs to have time to unlock it. It has a lot more oak as a result. It's put in small barrels for 2 years, so it picks up a lot more oak and it can handle it. It's got more tannin, density, more acidity, much more stuffing. You know, it's a bit more darker, more intense. It's like stewing a tea for a long, long time. Whereas this one, we put in large barrels. Like if you've been to the winery, those big casks, we talked about it. One Take Dave, my second video, I think, we had 1,000 gallon or 4,500 litre casks. That was a slow aging process. Of course, there was less oak for the volume inside it. So a year or two in those, and the wine isn't as oaky and it's much fruitier, and it drinks pretty well, and it does keep. This, we're trying the 2014 block 8 and the 2014 block 5. And the block 5 is, I mean, they're both in pretty good shape. That's still got some red colour to it. Still got some primary oak. You smell oak because it hasn't settled down. At 6 years of age, and this is one of those wines I think will be probably better when I'm dead, because it's a slow aging wine. Now the 2014 block 8 is getting full licorice now. This is starting to show some age. In terms of its aging ability, 2 to 3 years, and the wine will start to fade. It'll still be good. These wines don't just suddenly hit a dead end and taste like nothing. They just gradually get musty and stale, and they become quite dry, and they lose their enjoyment as a red wine, particularly the fruit that dies out as it gets older. A lot of people don't like old wine, and I understand if you haven't been shown old wine is about balance between the vibrancy and freshness of the character versus the staleness of old age. And at some point, wines suddenly get past their date. So we do encourage people to buy 4 to 6 bottles of it and have one every couple of years, and then when it gets close, you'll know. It doesn't suddenly age quickly, it just gradually fades away, a bit like old soldiers, you know.
So in general, David, what is the aging potential for the block 5 versus the block 8?
We say on the back label between 10 to 15 years, and lately, and the back label is something that's important. I would say, I said it on this back label on the 14, an infant at present, but when the wine grows up, in 15 further years, it will be complex, soft in tannins and a delight. And I put the date down when I did these notes, so that was in February 2016, so from 15 years from then. So that makes 2031 or 2041.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a 15-year wine. And we know that because the 2001, the 2002 and 2003 block 5s we have still, they are progressing well. None of them are over the hill yet. So we will advise you when these wines are getting ready to drink, as long as you store them, and I reckon 16 degrees is the ideal.
David, we've had a question from Logan Curry. He's just curious about how much rain we've had out here recently.
Last week we got 82 millimetres, and the week before we got 56 millimetres. So it's pretty wet, and as you can see how delightfully green it looks. Now we've got to wrap this up soon. I just want to show you one thing we're doing down here. We planted in our vineyard this marvellous brassica called Tilly's radish. My old schoolmate Peter Watt from Cowra put me onto this, and this is a radish, and we grow that in the middle of the vineyard, and the radish grows out to be even 3 times bigger than that. It's like almost like a small pumpkin. And the reason we put that in there is it softens the soil. So it takes the need for using big heavy machinery with lots of diesel and lots of ploughing. You plant this in the soil and it softens the soil. And you can eat the radish too, it's brilliant. So if you come into the winery, you'll see on both sides of the road as we drive in, we've planted all this Tilly's radish. We're putting it into row. It means in the middle of the vineyards where we've had a lot of compaction to soften the soil. this is better than any sort of tractor and tillage implement. So this is the sort of thing we love doing, and we can eat where they're organic, so we can wash them up and take them and eat them at the Zen house.
Would you say that's part of the biodynamics of the farm?
Correct, yeah. So certainly part of the biodynamics is when you plant them. So we plant it when the earth breathes in, and then we harvest it at certain times when the earth's breathing out, and we harvest it when there is a perigee, when the moon is closest to the earth. So the gravitational pull of the earth of the moon is stronger.
I think we should do an episode on biodynamics soon.
Yeah,
that sounds really interesting.
I'll try and do a cheats guide to it if you like. 15 minutes is hard, but we'll try and do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm going to finish drinking the Block 5 2014 and compare it to the Block 5 2018. We have bits and pieces of these available still at our museum, and we're going to progressively bring these out. If you're on our mailing list, you'll see with all these offers. If you're on our wine club, of course, you get first crack at it. We've got a special offer coming up the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned to our mailing list, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday for One Take Dave.
We've had one more question come through, and I thought it was really funny. Do winemakers become old and stale if they lose their passion?
Everybody says I'm old and stale. Well picked up. Whoever it is, they're welcome to take the spot. I'd love a guest appearance, but who is that?
It's Philip Morphew.
He's a psychiatrist or psychologist. Yeah, he drinks a lot. Good on you, Philip.
Yep, and we've had one question about how we know whether the earth is breathing in or out, but I think we can tackle that one.
Yeah, so Brian Keats writes this calendar, biodynamic calendar, which tells us a waning moon, waxing moon. I can give you a demonstration. Let's try and do it maybe next week. Here's
Sounds
an idea.
Good.
Let's do it next week. I'll show you the calendar. I'll try and interpret the calendar for how we do things, but it certainly tells you when to harvest, when to plant, when the crops are better than other days. So there's good days and bad days, and I'll try and make that as simple as possible because I find it very difficult myself. Complex.
Great.
All right, David, One Take Dave, signing off on Sunday, Easter. See you next Wednesday. No, Thursday.
Thursday.